I. Hmm. Hello, hello. It's nighttime. It's late. I'm tired. And I thought, why not? Let's ruin everyone else's day, because mine was mediocre. Silence. Okay, let's get on with this thing. So I had a random thought, like I usually do. Most of them don't make any sense, like usual, but I had one specific thought stand out to me. Okay, so if you had a piece of paper, and let's say you fold it, eventually you will get to a point where there's too much resistance to actually fold it again. But how about, let's say there was no longer any resistance towards it. You could fold it as many times as you want, and it'd still be really easy as the first time. So you would continue to fold it until eventually it gets to a point where it's really small. Like you can barely see it. And if you continue to fold it, it would eventually get to the point where it's the size of an atom. Fold it again, it's smaller than that. Eventually, you will reach the smallest thing you can get. The Planck length, I think it's called, how it's pronounced. It's really weird. It's like a CK instead of a K for Planck. So it's like a Planck. Well, basically, it's supposed to be the smallest thing in the universe. Like, it's so small you can't even imagine it. That kind of level. So, you can't fold it anymore. You've hit it. It's the smallest it can possibly get in its width. But, we already said that there's no resistance. So you can fold it again. It can be folded again and again, infinitely. Even though I don't believe in infinity, but it can be folded. Now, there are like three options. There are around three that will occur. Three events that will occur, well, most likely, if you were to fold it again. One, it could possibly become smaller. It could possibly somehow manage to become the next smallest thing in our universe, just so small it can't even be perceived anymore. Like you can take the strongest microscope, can't see it still. It it's practically no longer existing to us. That's how small it is. Two, it could inverse and contort that instead of it getting bigger, if it instead of it getting smaller, it can get bigger. It inverses. It does the impossible. It expands when you're having it. That's how small it's gotten. Or three, it'll, it will eventually become smaller than space itself. It folds in on itself. It inverts again. Now, if you've ever watched Ant-Man and got to the ending, where he goes subatomic, he eventually gets so small that he becomes smaller than space itself. Now you may be thinking, oh, that's not gonna do anything though. He just gets smaller and smaller. Well, here's the thing. Everything takes up space. Like atom, even though it's really tiny, it still takes space. So if you get smaller than space while you still take space, you get to the point where you will cause a black hole to form. Now, that shouldn't be possible. You cannot shrink to the point of being smaller than space when you take up space. That's like a next dimension right there. So if you think about it, having this halving problem, it essentially defies our perception of reality. It doesn't follow rules that we're used to. Fold it, it gets smaller, not bigger. And nothing can be smaller than a Planck length, as we know, so it essentially not exist. But yet it would still have to take up space, because, you know what? The mass that it once took is suddenly gone. Or, wait, I think that's all of them actually. It gets either bigger, it forms a black hole, even though that's just what we think would happen. In reality, I don't think it'd do anything, because it just vanishes. Space can't get smaller than space, period. And, yeah. So think about that. And my second thing I'm going to talk about tonight is numbers. I hate it when people say that numbers are infinite. They are not. They can go on infinitely, but they cannot, since they're something that we made. They don't exist without us, so technically they can expand forever. Let's say when we first invented numbers, you counted to 10. That was the highest number at that point. You could have gone on, but there's an end. It's in between a sequence. If you've ever drawn a line for math, a number line, there's a thing called array. It's a line segment, actually. That's what I'm talking about, not array. Okay. I'm really tired. A line segment. You are taking a period, a certain set of numbers, and calling it an end on both sides. It does not expand on any other side. Numbers have the possibility of going on infinitely, but they will always reach an end, so they don't actually go on infinitely. Eventually, numbers will reach a maximum, either by a point where we will never expand across that number, we will hit a number that we will never ever go across, or it'll become obsolete with a, let's say, higher science, or like we no longer need numbers. Either way, it cannot expand forever. It will end. So numbers can expand infinitely, but they're not. They are not infinite. It's just a perception thing. We say they go on infinitely because we believe that we will always expand upon it. But eventually we will hit a point where we will no longer expand with numbers. They cannot go infinitely for us. And it's actually why people say we can't understand or comprehend infinity. It's because I believe that nothing really is infinite. It's just our comprehension of it. There's a theory called the Schrodinger's cat theory, where if you take a cat and a radioactive transmitter inside of it and put them both in a box, the cat is both dead and alive until you make an observation. We believe in infinity because we have never made an observation of it. But that's also why infinity could not exist, because we can't make an observation of it. It both exists, yet doesn't. I lean towards the more, it's not a real thing. Like, for instance, the third thing I'm talking about is just some random crap. Those two were about all I had prepared. Now I'm just going to go on a tangent. Okay. What if the universe is actually not infinitely expanding? Well, following our rules of science, anyways. We're following the theory of the Big Bang creating the universe. Then it is actually not infinitely expanding either, because energy was created at that moment, and energy cannot be destroyed but only transferred. So eventually, everything will transfer out energy so much it's too thin to maintain, and it'll either cause a great surge of energy, which will eviscerate the entire universe, or it'll be so thin that it'll actually freeze everything in the universe because there's not enough energy to create heat. So that means the universe is not infinitely expanding, since it will reach a point of an end following the Big Bang theory. Also, I thought about this at one point in time. What if the universe is actually just a small world, like a pocket dimension, and we have yet to actually reach the end? Like, let's say there's a black void, just like a black wall. If you surround your room in just empty blackness, it's like that. The weirdest thing about black is the fact that it's actually kind of as close as you can get to perceiving infinity. Any solid color is. I say that because you can look at it, and yet the same color holds the same shade infinitely. You can look into it, and your perception of it can change depending on how solid the color is or how flat the wall is. So, if you were to flatten out your wall and paint it black, that is the closest you can get to understanding infinity. It's like looking up into the sky. The color changes, so I guess you can get kind of closer with that. Different gradient. But it's the fact that you cannot see an end to it. That's why I say it's the closest you can get. It's a wall, it's a flat surface. You can't see an end. An end does not exist to it. So we just perceive it as blank. That's the closest you can ever get to understanding or comprehending infinity. So that's what I was saying. So what if it's just like a cube or like a circle, and it's just surrounded by nothing? It's nothing. It doesn't expand upon that. It's just void. And I'm not saying like the air kind of void. I'm saying it's just a wall of void, just nothing. It's devoid of color, light, energy, particles itself. It is nothing. You cannot touch it, you cannot see it, and out of anything, you cannot do anything with it. There's really nothing to say. It's just empty. So it's like taking a piece of paper, drawing a black box or circle in it, and that's our world. The white being the void that we cannot comprehend. So out of anything, the universe could be small. That void can't be the universe. It's nothing. If anything, the universe is made up of a lot of something. But the void I'm talking about has nothing. So yeah, the universe, we have no idea. Out of anything, another Schrodinger's cat thing to say about it. You know, I've mentioned that a couple of times now, so I think I'm going to mention my last topic for the night. Whew, we're hitting the 15-minute mark soon. But yeah, my last topic for the night is this. The Schrodinger's cat theory. My favorite theory of all time. It is something that you can use so many options with and so many ideas that it makes me sound like I'm a genius when I'm not. So, the Schrodinger's cat theory. It is where something can exist yet not exist until an observation has been made. but that's following the rule for each person. So that led me to another theory. I like to call it the majority theory. Since everyone is following the Schrodinger's cat theory, and turns out to be true, then belief is what powers everything. Let's say it like this. For the longest time, everyone believed that the world was flat. We believed that we could fall off the edge at any moment. But if we're following the mass majority theory, since everyone believed it, it was true. But as more and more people believed that the world was round, it slowly shaped out to be like that. It shaped our perception of it. Instead of being flat and being able to fall off, it rounded itself out and became a sphere since more people believed it like that. You see, it's like rumors. Eventually, the rumors will get enough ground to where you will believe them to be true no matter what. It's like with flat earthers nowadays. They refuse the evidence because they want to believe that it is flat. It's like with a rumor. Let's say that instead of... This is probably going to get me a lot of hate later. I'm not a flat earther, I swear, but let's say the world being round was a rumor. It started off as that. Eventually, it'll reach another person, and another person, and another. It'll spread. And that's why my majority theory comes in. It eventually shaped itself out. So if we're following that theory, anything could be true. We could actually have the power to shape our entire perception of reality itself. Not just the small things. We could shape everything. You could think of a higher power. Religion, for instance. If enough people believe in a god, the god ends up becoming true. Since, it's the majority. And that's why these things happen more often. You see, miracles didn't really exist or were never really noted down back in Greece. Actually, no, they were. It's just, I really hate the Greek gods. They get on my nerves. But ignoring that, they were written as being people. And since all of them believed it, it was sort of almost true. If you get what I'm saying? I don't have enough time to explain it clearly. This isn't going to take like an entire episode on its own. Yeah, I like to make my streams short and kind of straight to the point. No, they weren't straight to the point at all. Well, that'll be it for tonight. I hope you learned something. You probably didn't. But hey, if you even watched it, thanks. See you all next time.